We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Dalet and Beis Mesechet Kesuvos. This is Kesuvos Daf 54b. The Gemara here continues the story. There was an individual on his deathbed who gave the following instruction in terms of his will: Arba mea zuzei min chamra livras. There should be 400 zuz. The value of 400 zuz from this wine should go to my daughter in terms of her dowry. Ayakar chamra. Then the value of the wine increased. Amar Rav Yosef said, Rav Chaliyasme, again, that profit is going to go to the orphans. It's going to go to her brothers, not to the daughter. Rashi over here says, Arba mea zuz min chamra, meaning 400 zuz from the wine. Mashma oso yain yehe meshubed lekach, meaning this particular wine that is designated for her. Aval hayayin atzmo lomer litein lo kedama shel yom hatzava, but he didn't say to give the wine according to the value on the day of the will, of the day of the instruction. He just said, from this wine, give her 400 zuz worth of wine. And so then again, if the wine goes up in value, so that profit is going to go to the orphans. And the Gemara continues, Karive de Rabbi Yochanan Havalu Itas Abba. The relatives of Rabbi Yochanan, they had the wife of their father, Dahava Kamifsa de Mizoni. She would lose out for them in terms of the Mizonos, meaning she would take a lot of Mizonos for herself, and they were afraid that that would cause that they would lose the Yerusha. So Asul Lakami de Rabbi Yochanan. So they came before Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Lahu, so he said to them, Izilu va'amru le'lavuchon, go tell your father, that he should designate a specific piece of land for the Mizonos, then that will be designated for the Mizonos, and she won't be able to take additional Mizonos. So the Gemara says, also Lakami de Reish Lakish, they came before Reish Lakish. Amar Lahu, he said to them, Kol shekein sheriba la Mizonos. If you give her a piece of land, you've just increased her Mizonos. That doesn't take away from her right to get the Mizonos that she's accustomed to, so that doesn't help at all. So Amru Le, so they said to him, V'ha Rabbi Yochanan lo Amar Hachi. But Rabbi Yochanan didn't say like this. Rabbi Yochanan said this would help us. We give her a piece of land, we won't have to give her any Mizonos. Amar Lahu, so he said to them, Zilu havu la, go and give her what she needs. V'lo, and if you don't do that, mafikna lechu Rabbi Yochanan meyonaycha, I'm going to take Rabbi Yochanan out of your ears. I'll make you forget what Rabbi Yochanan ever said. Also, Lakami de Rabbi Yochanan, then they came before Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Lahu, he said to them, Mo esa, what can I do? Shekenegdi cholak alai, because there's somebody that's opposite me, there's somebody that's fit to argue with me, who disputes me, therefore I can't argue back. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Avo said, L'didim partially mined Rabbi Yochanan. To me it was explained from Rabbi Yochanan what Rabbi Yochanan meant to say. Amar, if the person phrases it and says limizonos, that it should be limizonos, so riba la mizonos, then he's really just increasing her mizonos. It wouldn't really help them. But Amar bimizonos, but if he says this is for the mizonos, bimizonos, this is instead of mizonos, so to speak, so katzatz la mizonos, then he's had a set amount for her for mizonos, and then they would not have to provide her with more. And the Gemara and Rashi over here explains, Mifsada Mizone Mar Belechol, again she ate a lot, she was taking a lot of what would be their Yerusha. Maybe she'll accept the specific land that you designate. Because even by Ksuba it says in the Mishnah, Hakosev kol nechasav levana v'chasav leishto karka kolshu. A person gives all of his property to his sons, but he gives his wife a little bit of karka. Of the Ksuba, so she loses the Ksuba with that. Rabbi Yossi says, Im kivla aleh afav ishalo kasav lev. She accepts it even if he didn't write it out, that's enough. Lishna Achrin, another version, another way to understand this, it's as if he's distributing his property verbally, and he's giving the rest to his sons. Therefore all the property is considered nechasim mishubadim, and his wife and the daughters, they don't get to take from nechasim mishubadim. So that's another way to understand why distributing this land would help. And so Rashi continues, Kol shekein shariba la mizonos. So Reish Lakish said, no, you're just giving her more. Imamar karka zu la mizonos sayich. If he says this karka is free mizonos, ein ze ela im lo yitnu lach mizonos meruvachim ela mitzumtzamim. What that just means to say is, if they don't give you the proper amount of mizonos, a nice amount, they give you an exact amount, tali karka zu la hadaf. It's like he's saying, take this karka for a little extra in case they don't give you enough. Deila shavdil la mizonos arei kol nechasav mishubadim lekach. If it's in order to put a lien on this property for a mizonos, isn't all the property mishubed for a mizonos? What does it help to designate a particular piece of land? That's what Reish Lakish argued. Shekenegdi enosh ke'erki v'roi lachlok alei. Rabbi Yochanan said Reish Lakish is able, he's on the right level to argue with me, and therefore there's nothing I could do. And so then the Gemara said it depends how you phrase it. If you say bimizonos, bechov mizonos sheyesh lach alei, in other words, I have an obligation of mizonos, and this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm paying it, mashma shazute piron lakach, it sounds like this is the piron, so then in that case actually she would not be able to take from the other property. Hadron aloch nara. This is the end of the fourth parak of Mesechet Kesubos. If you're enjoying this channel and these videos, please like, share, and subscribe. And please take a look at the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we will now begin the fifth parak of Mesechet Kesubos. And the parak begins with the Mishnah, Afal Pisha Amru Besula Gova Masayim Ve'almona Mona, even though they said that a Besula gets 200 dinar and an Almona gets 100 dinar, Imratza Lahosef, if he wants to add to her Ksuba, Afilu Meya Mona, even if it's 100 Mona, Yosef, he is allowed to add. Nisar Malo Niskarsha, let's say she's widowed or divorced, Bein Min HaErisin, Bein Min HaNisuin, whether it's from the state of Erisin, she was just betrothed, or whether they actually got married, Goves Akol, she collects the entire Ksuba. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah Omer, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah says, no, it depends. Min HaNisuin Goves Akol, if she's divorced or widowed from Nisuin, she collects the whole Ksuba. Min HaErisin, but if it's from Erisin, if it's just from betrothal, Besula Gova Masayim, a Besula will just get the base 200, the Almona Mona, and the Almona, the widow, she will get 100, Shelo Kasav Lo El Almanas Lakonsa, because that additional amount that was written into the Ksuba, that was on the understanding that she would get married, that they would get married. If they didn't actually get married, if it was just an Erisin, she just collects either the 200 or the 100. And the Mishnah continues, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Imratza kosev lebesula shtar shel masayim. If he wants, he can write for a besula a document that says she's going to get 200. V'hi koseves, and she can write, Hiskabalti mimcha mana, I already received from you 100. That's a way where he'll only have to give her 100, even if she didn't actually yet receive the 100. That's a way that 100 can be deducted. Uli almana mana, the same thing by an almana, he can write a document giving her 100. V'hi koseves, and she can write back, Hiskabalti mimcha chamishim, I've already received from you 50 chamishim zuz, 50 zuz. And the Mishnah continues, Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir says, Kol hapoches lebesula mimasayim, anyone who gives to a besula less than 200, uli almana mimana, anyone who gives less to an almana than 100, harezu be'ilas nus, that's considered to be a be'ilas nus. Living with that woman is not appropriate, it wouldn't be appropriate to be married to such a woman, and therefore Rabbi Meir says it is not allowed to give less than that base amount of 200 or 100 to the besula and the almana respectively. And the Gemara says, Pshita, isn't it obvious that he's allowed to give her more than the 200 or the 100 in the ksuba? And the Gemara says, no, Ma'udetema, what might you have thought? Kitsusa avdu rabbanan, that the rabbanan, they say there's a maximum amount, there's a set amount to give, you can't give more than that. Shelo levayish es misha ein lo, maybe that's in order not to embarrass somebody who doesn't have the funds. Kamash malon, that's what the Mishnah is teaching, the person is allowed to give more in the ksuba, those are minimum amounts, those are not maximum amounts. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Imratza lahosev v'chulu, again it said that if he wants to add on, he could add on. And the Gemara says, Ratza lichtov la lo katani, it doesn't say if he wants to write it in. Ela ratza lahosev, it says if he wants to add on, it uses this language of addition. Messiah lei Rabbi Evo Amar Rabbi Yanai, that supports what Rabbi Evo said, that Rabbi Yanai said. The Amar Rabbi Evo Amar Rabbi Yanai, because Rabbi Evo said that Rabbi Yanai said, Tanai ksuba kechsuva dami, the conditions that are in the ksuba, that's like a part of the ksuba. It's not like a separate type of contractual obligation, but it's all part of the same ksuba. And the Gemara says, nafkamina makes a difference. Lemocheres, let's say you have a woman who sells the ksuba, or lemocheles, or let's say you have somebody who forgives her ksuba, lemoredis, or let's say you have somebody who rebels on her husband, ulepogemis, let's say you have a situation of a woman who says she already received part of the ksuba payment, letovas, or let's say you have a situation of a woman who is claiming the ksuba in bezin, uloveres aldas, or let's say you have a situation of a woman who is violating the religion. We'll take a look at Rashi over here, and Rashi explains, Rotza lichtov lo katani, it doesn't say that if he wants to write it into the ksuba. Itana lichtov lo have a shamin and mina. If it said lichtov, then we would not have understood sheyeh hatosefes kare ksuba, that which is written in is called ksuba. Ela kemasna midaito ve'ein shem ksuba alav. It's like something that he's put, a condition he's putting in. It's not really called the ksuba. It's just an additional contract. Hashda detnan lahosef. But when you use the language of addition, mashma nosav ala ksuba shetiknu chacham. It sounds like you're adding to the ksuba of the chachamim. V'shem ksuba alav, and the additional payment is also called ksuba. Gamhu messiah le, and so therefore again that is a support for what we're saying, that the Tanai ksuba is like the ksuba. Tanai ksuba tosefes shuhu masna lahosef lo, that which he adds as a condition to add to the ksuba, v'chein mezonos, and everything else in there as well, the mezonos that he gives, etc. V'chol hanach tetanan b'pirkan deleil, all of the different things in the ksuba before, they're all called ksuba, they're all considered ksuba. And what's the nafkamina? Lemocheres or lemocheles, if she sells it or she forgives it. Mocheres ksuba, so she sells her ksuba, or mocheles ksuba, or she forgives the ksuba, she says she doesn't need the payment. Machlo machres hakol, we assume that she forgave or sold the whole thing, including the tosefes. Lafisha hakol kare ksuba, it's all called ksuba. V'lo amina lo mikri ksuba elamana masayim, we don't say that the only part that's really called the ksuba is the 100 or the 200. Or lemoredis, let's say you have a rebellious woman, the tanan v'pirkan hamoredis al ba'alav, if she rebels against her husband, pochsin la miksubasa, we start deducting from her ksuba. Ad masayhu poches ad keneged ksubasa, until what does he deduct? Until the value of the ksuba. Lo teima keneged mana masayim lechudayu, and don't say that that deduction is only corresponding to the 100 or the 200. 200. Also, when it comes to the additional funds that are in the ksuba, that also is deducted. That also is called ksuba. Pogemis. Pogemis again is somebody who says that she's collected some of the ksuba. But Perak HaKosev Tanan, in Perak HaKosev we learned in the Mishnah, HaPogemis ksuba, so let's say she ruins her ksuba, Lo tifra ela b'shavua, so then the payment only happens with an oath. Meaning to say, in Pagmo Tosefes Nami, even if she does this with the addition, Sha'amr that she says, L'shem piron hatosafas iskabalti dinar, I already received a dinar, and that was for the sake of paying this additional part. Afzu Pogemis ksubasi, that's considered somebody, she's actually ruining the ksuba. Even if she says, I've received a dinar towards the tosefes, that ruins the ksuba. And at that point, let's say the husband says, no, you actually got the entire ksuba. Lo tifra ela b'shvua. So then the only way that ksuba is going to be paid is if she takes an oath. And Rashi continues, L'tovas, let's say you have a situation of one who claims, Sha'amru chachamim hatovas ksubasu bebezin. We said, the chachamim said that if a woman claims her ksuba in bezin, ein la mizonos, she no longer gets mizonos, so what does she have to claim? Tovas tosefes nami, ein la mizonos. If she goes to bezin to ask for the tosefes, she also loses the mizonos. So again, the tosefes is considered the actual ksuba. Overes alda, somebody who violates the religion, beperak hamadir, shamru ala teitze shelo b'ksuba. We say that somebody who violates the religion, so she's divorced without a ksuba, lo teima ksubas mana masayim. Don't say that's only the 100 or 200. Aval tosefes matona bi'almahu lo ifsida, but the tosefes, which was just a condition and a gift to her, that maybe you would say she would not lose out on. So again, the point is, overes aldas not only loses the ksuba itself, she loses the tosefes as well. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph.